Hello, I'm going to go over basic Ford IDS operation today. What we're going to do is we're going to select the IDS icon over here, double click. We're going to select what VCM we have. We're using a VCM 3, I believe, today. To start a session in IDS, we're going to make sure we're on the blue car icon. We're going to hit Start New Session. When you single click or click on an icon, it's going to highlight it blue. From here, you can either double click the highlighted area or you can come down and select the blue check mark. When you're following along with me, I'm going to double click almost probably a majority of the time because it's a lot faster. I don't feel it's an effective use of time to scroll from over to the top of the screen all the way down to the other corner. Even if it's a touch screen, to me it's a little bit slower. So here it's going to pull up all of our vehicle information. So we do want to make sure that we are on the right vehicle. The engine size is correct, transmission type, whether it's gasoline, diesel. We're going to have our odometer, our year, so all of our year, make, model, all of that kind of stuff is going to be here. We want to make sure our VIN is correct. Everything looks good. So from on this screen, we can go a lot of different places. So this is going to be kind of our base screen where we navigate. So up here, the blue car icon. Next to it is the red toolbox icon. We can select that. This is going to take us all to our other applications. So we can do our self-tests from here, data logger. If we're going to do any reprogram, so that's module reprogramming, network test, and then so on and so forth. One thing that I didn't mention, before you navigate to here, when you first hook your VCM up to the vehicle, you want to make sure this red VCM symbol down here in the corner is on. If you don't see this, then you have no communication with the vehicle, and you need to determine why. Really common issue is a lot of times the power point or the cigarette lighter is on the same fuse. If that gets blown a lot, you won't have any communication. It's the fuse for the data link connector and either the horn, cigarette lighter, things like that. Back on this screen, before I go back to the others to navigate, we have this icon down at the bottom left. Looks like a piece of paper. This is going to be our log for everything, every single test that we perform on this vehicle. Right now we pretty much have our vehicle information. We're scrolled down to the bottom. If we scroll back up to the top, it's going to go over vehicle information, file names. You can look up ABS, different modules. So this is ABS module, the part number, whether it passed for standard equipment, or generic electric module, instrument cluster, PCM. So that's a good place to go get part numbers if you need to. If it's showing that it's passed, it's probably making, or it's communicating, so it's somewhat done a quick network test as well. Here, what we're looking at is standard equipment. It's the restraint control module. These are all the codes that are set in that module at this present time. And then it's just going to kind of go down. It's going to, oh, this was a previous session that we did. So we started to do an EVAPS test in this session. So now it's showing what fuel tank that we've selected for gallon capacity. It's gone through, basically it records every single thing that we've done with this vehicle. So this is why if you start a session and it comes up with a already open session on a vehicle, if it's not one that you're already working on, you may want to start a new session and don't go into that old session. If somebody else had worked on this car in the past and you're looking at it for warranty, you're going to get a lot of information that might skew some of your results. The next tab at the bottom left is a car with a little folder. This is where you're either going to save your recordings complete or complete, so that's going to delete recordings, or you can delete your session. Here, I'll kind of go back over this as we close out this session and why I do things the way I do. Now we're going to go back to this tab. It's going to pull up our vehicle information. We're going to click the red toolbox. So here, if we double click on self-test, we can either pick any of these like a body, chassis, electrical, powertrain. So let's click powertrain. So if we click engine, it's going to basically pull all the codes or run self-tests on the engine or powertrain control module. You can go just modules, so you can isolate that. So if you went to powertrain, it's going to pull codes for the transmission as well. Or we can select all continuous memory DTCs, so this will pull up every single code that's present in the vehicle. For this demonstration, we'll go to powertrain, engine. So here, after we open the engine tab, we have key on, engine off. So this will do a on-demand self-test with kind of what it basically says, key on, engine off. The next one down is key off, engine running. And then we have retrieve continuous memory DTCs. This is only going to pull up powertrain codes, so engine, transmission. What I typically do here is I may retrieve continuous memory, but each of these all have their own place. So if we're looking for a concern, if we're looking for a code that's only going to set when the engine's running, we're going to need to do a key on engine running. This is also going to tell us if we have any on-demand faults. So all of these tests, I will probably run all of those if I'm doing a drivability diagnostics. So I'm going to click on continuous memory. And now basically all it's doing is reading all of the codes that have set. So a history code, anything that's set as a continuous memory or a history code. These may not be on-demand faults. So these are all the codes that are set in here. If you highlight that code, it's going to pull up a description of the code off to the side. This is run charging system diagnostic. That's going to tell you kind of what you need to do. And then if there's any other statuses available, it's going to tell you over here. We can click on this. So this is the description of the code is O2 sensor, signal stuck rich, bank 1, sensor 1. It's going to give you an idea of things that can do that, either low manifold vacuum. If we click on that, it's going to tell us temperature, manifold, absolute pressure. Could be high fuel pressure that would cause that to do, or the O2 sensors to stick rich. Could be air intake restrictions, so it might give you some guidance there as well. If you go over here to freeze frame data, it's going to give you the conditions of when these codes were set. What condition was present when the code set. To me, this is important because if I'm going to start my diagnostic process, I want to know what conditions are present to make this code set. So if it's under heavy throttle, if I'm out driving around under light throttle, I'm never going to get the code to set because I'm not going to meet the condition. So here, it's really important to look at engine coolant temp. It was 170 degrees. If this was set at 50 degrees or 32, I know it's cold. I need to set this vehicle up for my diagnostics when it's cold. If it was set when it's hot, I know I need to set my diagnostics up when the vehicle's hot. The other things that I can look at is vehicle speed, the engine RPM. So these are all indicators to me of what do I need to do to get this concern present. If it was setting a rich code and I looked over here at fuel rail pressure and this was at 100 psi or like say 55 outside of the normal range, if it was a rich concern and I saw high fuel pressure, that's going to kind of help me determine if I'm looking for an air restriction or O2 concern or fuel injector fault, something of that nature. So it's going to give me different areas to go to narrow my diagnostic procedure. Over here, if you want to get out of these screens, you can click the top right corner, the little menu button, and now you can either print from here, so you can print this screen, or you can exit. like I said, I double click. Now going back to the toolbox, now we can go to data logger. This is where we're going to go to look at any active PIDs or active values. So once again, we can select by body, chassis, electrical, powertrain, or we can select individual modules. Here we go into powertrain, it's engine, transmission. So if you're not sure where you're wanting to go, sometimes it's a little easier to go to the subsystems. Once our data logger screen opens, Ford's going to pre-populate the most common PIDs or values that you need to look at, different sensors. Here, anything that's dark gray is what's actually selected. Anything that is light colored, white, that is unselected sensors, actuators, solenoids, things of that nature. If you hover your cursor over any of these boxes, if you look at the bottom of the screen down here, it's going to change. So this is what that actual sensor is. So maybe you don't know what OSS means. So if you hover over that, you look down on that screen, it's output shaft speed. Over here, if you were wondering what FRP volt is, that's fuel rail pressure voltage. So on and so forth. So you can kind of select those. You can select what you want. You can keep the pre-populated. Come and hit the check mark. What I recommend when I first look at things, I usually look at the pre-populated values, and then as I narrow my diagnostics, once I'm starting to narrow down what I think the concern is, I'm probably going to go back to a screen and deselect some things so that the refresh rate is faster on the computer, so I can pick up intermittent concerns, things like that. Other things that I would recommend doing, actually let me go back one screen for just a second so I can show you something here. Here I'm going to pull up an actual injector. So in fuel injector faults, we have an injector fault. So this is just going to say we have a fault in a fuel injector. You can pull up the actual injector. And what I like to do here is I'm going to highlight that so it's black. The borders are highlighted in bold. So then I'm going to come over to, oops. Oh, sorry. I'm going to come over to this symbol right here with the finger. I'm going to click on that. And this is going to allow me to go to a graph format. So I'm going to go over to this, select that. The reason I select this for if I'm checking, if I suspect I have a fuel injector fault, any fault that is a digital reading, like a yes, a no, a yes or a no, or if I'm looking at O2 sensors, I want to graph that. And the reason why is right now I have a 15 seconds that I get to see a fault. If it's a yes, no, I only have the split second of when that fault happens to catch it. And if I'm not looking at the screen, I may miss it. Here I have a 15-second window. If a fuel injector faults for 2 seconds, I'll see it. I have a better chance of seeing that. So we're gonna back out of this. We're gonna hit exit. The other one thing that I didn't show that is nice about IDS is it's a Windows-based platform. So all of those tabs that I've been closing out, I can keep those all open and I can toggle through them. So I don't have to. One of the benefits to an IDS is I can have my data logger pulled up. I can have my self-test screen still pulled up, so I can toggle between different screens pretty fast. Down here at the bottom, or we'll keep scrolling down. Like I said, this is for module programming. And click on that and select the proper module. I'll have a video that's more in depth on that. We have network testing. Down here is going to be separate test that we can do too. So here we can select powertrain, we can go to fuel. Now we can do an EVAPS test, fuel economy test, fuel system test. We can go to ignition test, coil on plug stress test. We can do a power balance, and we can do a relative compression. I'll have separate videos on all of these. We can do engine checks. So there's tons of different things that we can do here. We can go to reset cam, which is keep alive memory. You don't want to do that until you've definitely know you've fixed your concern. OBD test mode, so we can go to drive cycle, mode 1, which is powertrain data, mode 6, which is onboard test results, and mode 6, vehicle information. I'll have a separate video on mode 6 and diagnostic aids that you can do off of this as well. And that's kind of most of the broad features that we can do. We can go into more in-depth on every single one of these. Like I said, I'll have more on that later. It would be an extremely long video if we did all of those. So once you're done with your session, you need to come down here to the blue car with the file, click on this, and then you need to select which one's appropriate. I recommend once you've printed your vehicle logs for if you need them for warranty information, it's a good idea to attach them to your work order. Shows a workflow of what you've done. It's also a good reference for you for your diagnostic, writing your repair order and filling out your repair order for customer documentation. So once you have all of that, you're going to double click that. You're going to delete the session. That's really important because, like I said, if like earlier when I was showing you the vehicle log, when we click down here, how it was all filled up with a bunch of different tests, if you leave that open, you could possibly have a lot of extra stuff. It also helps the fellow technicians in the shop. If you leave your sessions open every single time you're done and you put the scan tool away, the person behind you has to come delete your session. It takes away from them being productive. While you're there, just delete your session, makes the world a happy place. That's kind of the basic operations. Stay tuned for more. Thank you.